that it's such a specific thing but there's a million answers for one thing, right?
Yep.
It's so specific, but Jeff may have a way to attack that issue with a particular fighter he has. Not all of them, just a particular one. How he answers that question. That I may have a whole different answer, but it answers the question. So by the time you put all these kids up in Colorado, man, trying to do that shit, I can't imagine the frustration, the can of worms that could open, man, and is why some people succeed and some people don't, bro. I don't want nothing to do with being a national coach, bro. I can't imagine. Nah.
Well, it's more frustrating to the boxers than it is to myself, because with the boxers, they've been taught, by that one coach, mostly that one coach their whole career. By the time they get here, now they got these different coaches, and they trying to teach them something, add to their kit bag, trying to add something different to their kit bag so they can be successful. So it's kind of frustrating for them at first. It's like, well, my coach doesn't do it that way. I wasn't taught that. So once they get that attitude of, okay, well, I'm here to learn, I'm going to learn, I'm just going to add it to what I do, then they're successful. But for myself as a coach, it's not frustrating. I see it as a coaching challenge. I love, like I said, I consider myself a teacher, not a coach or a trainer. So I love teaching. And that moment when that light goes off in that kid's head and they say, oh, now I see what you're talking about. And then they start actually executing it. That's the joy that I get out of it.
Right. Yeah.
And once an athlete and a boxer gets to that point, and I'm not saying this is always the case, but there has to be a certain set of expectation that as a fighter, when he arrives, that, hey, I'm on a big stage now. This is Team USA, and so my attitude should be that of I'm here to learn and become better than what I arrived. But I'm sure you'll have those instances where you have, a fighter that doesn't want to conform, I guess, to that process, and that's where the challenge, the frustration for them would be, I assume.
Yeah, it is. But eventually, if they stay on the team long enough,
they understand.
Get it. They eventually get it. At some point, that light does come on, and it's like, oh shit, I got it. Now I see what you're talking about. And sometimes that moment may come, not doing training camp, but when they step in the ring against a Cuban, or when they step in the ring against somebody from Great Britain or a Russian. So when they step in the ring and all the stuff we've been trying to teach them and get them to do, or trying to explain to them that didn't sink in, once they step into the ring, it's like, oh shit, now I see what they're talking about.
Yeah.
The next time they get in there, they come back to camp, it's not as hard to teach. They are more open to it.
The light bulb moments is what you're looking for, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about your career in the military. 21 years in the U.S. Army.
21 long years.
When
I first went in, I never thought that I would stay 21 years. I only went in. Tell you a story. Me and one of my buddies was drunk, and we stopped by a recruiter's office as a joke, and I talked to the recruiter. He was like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I like to box. I like to punch people. I like to fight. He said, well, you know what? You could go in the Army and do that, and that would be your only job. I said, shit, where do I sign it? He said, well, come on tomorrow after you sober up a little bit, and you can sign up. And that's how I signed up for the Army.
Get out of here. Wow. So you thought you were going to be boxing for the Army, huh?
Yeah, when I went in, I boxed for the first 3 to 4 years, and then I had a hand injury that stopped me from boxing. And so, growing up in Mississippi, I'm originally from Mississippi. We had a bunch of hogs and lived out in the country. So when it came time for me to re-enlist, I said, well, look, I can go back to small town Mississippi to the hogs, or I can stay in the Army and keep seeing the world. Man, that's an easy decision.
Huh. And when you enlisted, what was your MOS?
Communication.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
What the fuck do that mean? What MOS mean?
Your job title.
Yep, military operations specialist or military operations specialist, some shit like that.
Why you couldn't ask a motherfucker what his job was, man? Y'all always trying to leave me in the dust, man. Nah, I'm just picking. You, Jeff, you boxed prior to the to joining?
Yep, after I graduated from high school, I ended up going to Job Corps because I didn't know what else I wanted to do. Went to Job Corps and got into a fight up there, and just so happened the boxing coach for the Job Corps place that I was at, he saw me. He said, "Well,
right,
you got some pretty good hands there. You want to learn how to box?" And shit, yeah, I learned how to punch people. So I had about 5 fights before I joined the Army, and I fell in love with it. But back home in Mississippi, there was nowhere to. In my hometown, there was no boxing gyms, nowhere to box.
right.
And how did your love for boxing come about?
Just watching it on TV, watching Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, some of my
Fabulous Four.
Yeah, oh yeah. Watching those guys box, I just kept saying, I want to do that. Let's
get before we go any deeper. Let's get your rank those 4 for us.
Woo.
Yeah, buddy.
I would say Leonard.
I'm with you.
Then it would be Hearns or Hagler. I would say Hearns. Then it's hard between Hagler and Duran. If I had to, I would just say all 4 are good across the board.
And they are 1,000%. But I think I'm with you. I got Sugar Ray number 1, Hearns number 2, Hagler 3, Duran 4.
Yeah. That would be a safe bet.
Yeah. D, go ahead.
Oh,
Derek will probably Derek will probably reverse that. He'd be. I could tell you, Derek's. Derek's is. I tell you, Derek's is Duran number 1, Hearns number 2, Hagler number 3, and no, Duran number 3. I mean, Duran number 1, Tommy Hearns number 2.
You're having a hard time with these 4 fucking people.
Well, I'm picking yours. And
listen. When it comes to those 4 guys, I don't put my personal opinions in there. That I know exactly what. Listen, Tommy Hearns was my idol, but he's not number 1. Roberto Duran, Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, and Marvin Hagler.
Yeah.
But by the time you go to Roberto Duran is the greatest lightweight ever. So comparing the greatest lightweight ever to say a Marvin Hagler, arguably one of the greatest middleweights ever, if not what is it, 1, 2, or 3? So, it's hard to do. But as far as domination and what he's achieved, Roberto Duran's only second to fucking Ray Robinson, bro. So when you say those 4 people, it is what it is. But when you start looking at, he fought Tommy at about junior middleweight or some shit. Yep. He never was knocked out before that, never was knocked out after that, even in his fucking 5th decade as a fighter. So it's kind of unfair to rank them. So I just rank them like pound for pound, how they would be. And, if it was up to me, Ray Leonard wouldn't even be on the fucking list. But I'm going to tell you the truth. That motherfucker's great. Hey, yesterday my cousin called me, right? From the boxing side of the family. He goes, "Cuz." He said, "Man, fucking Ray Leonard, man, was great, huh?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I was showing my son, man. I was like, I remember when I was a kid thinking he was such a great boxer, but he wasn't no finisher." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I was wrong his 2 left shoes." He said, "Man, fucking Ray Leonard." I said, "Yeah, fucking Ray Leonard, man. That motherfucker was special, bro. God damn, he was special, man." But so we did like that 8-pound, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, did the best of all of them. And I would say, I think we both agreed that welterweight, who you gonna put over Ray Leonard, bro? You really can't. If he ain't the best welterweight ever do it, who the fuck is? You know what I'm saying? That dude was great, bro. And I think I settled down in the older I get, I'm settling into accepting the fact that I gotta like this motherfucker, man. But he crushed me as a kid, man.
That was a great era to watch boxing, man, and a great time to follow boxing.
Because you can name about 5 more motherfuckers under those 4 that belong up there with him. So, they get the notoriety. But by the time you talk about the Benitez and all those other guys, they right there with them. Right there at the top too. Man, yeah, it was a hell of a time to grow up in the. Jeff's a little older than me, but I experienced all them '80s boxes. All that heyday of boxing, man. I think the biggest fight that sticks out in my mind to show you my age about when I was able to comprehend the magnitude of fights. Man, for some reason, that Jerry Cooney and Larry Holmes fight, that was a huge fucking fight, man, in my world. Like everybody was talking about it. And I was young. So when I look back on it and I see like how Cooney was coming up and what he did in the Golden Gloves in New York and how he was destroying guys and shit, it's a compelling fight. And he got clipped early, I think, with Larry, but he was in that fight up until he just gassed out. But that was a huge fight. Do you remember that, Jeff? Was that a big thing?
Yep, that was a big fight. That was a big
fight, man. That was a huge, huge, huge fight, and not even to the racial undertones was there. I don't think I didn't think Cooney necessarily wanted to be in that situation, but he was thrust into the shit, and hell, that man got a drinking problem and everything after that, man. That was some pressure, I'd imagine, bro. But I remember that being a huge fight in my world, man, with my dad and my uncles and shit. That was a big fight because Jerry Cooney was the question mark, right? He was blowing through boys, like knocking boys slap out. King Norton, all them guys. He was knocking them dudes in the next week. And Larry, everybody knew how great Larry Holmes was, but nobody liked it. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's a watered down Ali and ain't fighting nobody, weak division.
Yeah.
But I mean, in hindsight, we all know better than that. But the thing is, man, that was a hell of I remember how huge that was. And then I would say, who else was on my radar back then? Who was a big guy when I was a kid? Ray Mancini, bro. That was a big old
Mancini.
Boom, boom.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, he was a big deal. And he put up a hell of a fight against Alexis, but he was in over his head, I think. So who did you watch? Who did you watch, Jeff, growing up?
All the fights that came on TV, and that was the 80s was a good time for boxing because everything was free and they played it on TV, so everybody got a chance to watch it.
I remember being at the barbershop as a kid, man. Like on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And fucking ABC boxing was on. You in the barbershop watching the fights, man.
Yep.
Yeah. It was a different era, man, completely.
Oh yeah.
So how did you actually find yourself in a boxing gym? How did that work out?
Well, that's why I told you.
Job Corps?
I was in Job Corps and got into a fight up there, and the boxing coach for the facility I was at, he just happened to see me fight, and he told me, "Well, look, you got some good hands there. You got a good solid punch. Come on up and learn how to box." I'm sure I learned how to punch people in the face.
That story almost mimics Big George, Jeff.
Yep.
He never fought. I don't think that's where he learned to fight, right? Job Corps.
Yep.
That was a good thing. Shit.
Yeah, I had about 5 fights up there, and my first fight, I ended up knocking a dude out in the first round. So that was a good thing, but that was like a bad thing. And the way I mean it was a bad thing, got back to the
Thought you was going to do it every time.
Oh, yeah, dude. I didn't train. I half-ass train.
I got this.
I don't need to do that. I'm a knockout fight. I'm knocking everybody out in the first round. So what do I need to train that hard for? Got to my next fight about 3 weeks later. A dude got in there the first round, gave the guy everything I had. He was still standing.
He came to fight.
Oh, yeah. I came into the corner at the first round. I said, "Coach, this motherfucker ain't going down."
What about this shit, Coach?
He said, "Well, I tried to tell you. My chest was burning. I felt bad. Couldn't feel my legs. Couldn't feel my arms." I said, "Coach, you got to stop it." I couldn't knock him out. He said, "I'm not stopping shit." He said, "You got two choices. You can quit or you can go back in there and fight." I didn't want to quit because then I would have to go back to the Job Corps center and tell everybody that I quit. So I went back in there. and I got beat on for that whole round. When I started out good, that first 30 seconds,